Welcome to Know the Cause, a TV show dedicated to changing the way medicine is practiced today in America. If your doctor knew that a known poison existed in your diet, he'd tell you, wouldn't he? But he doesn't know. Stay tuned and let the learning begin.
Hi, I'm Dr. John Trowbridge from Houston, Texas. Over 24 years ago, I wrote the Yeast Syndrome book. But 30 years ago, I met Doug Kaufman. He's wonderful. He can help you know the cause. Here's my good friend, Doug.
And welcome to the show. Dr. John Trowbridge is going to be back later in the show talking about Syndrome X. Do you think fungus is related to Syndrome X? Most doctors will tell you no. Dr. John will tell you, I believe there is. Kyle Drew is going to be here today.
Hey, man. How are you? Oh.
Kyle and I are going to talk about stress and then the prefix pre.
Right.
Pre-diabetes. We got a question on pre-diabetes. There's so much pre today.
Pre-hypertension.
Pre-cancer. You know, everything. Pre-cholesterol levels going up. So we're going to talk about that little word pre. Then Susie, do you suffer from depression? What causes it? We really don't know, but we know something that fixes it, and it's natural. It's been pretty well documented. In some cases, they get better by taking fish oil. Always talk to a doctor, folks. That's what this show is all about. But if your doctor can't fix it, say, Doc, can I try fish oil? All that and more on today's Know the Cause. That prefix pre, always bothers me. Preschool, it's before school. Precancerous happens before cancer.
Pre-hypertension.
Pre-hypertension happens before you get high blood pressure. So here we have from Susan, I have a child diagnosed with prediabetes. What do I do? First, let's define it. People with prediabetes, says WebMD, have glucose levels that are higher than normal, but not high enough to yet indicate diabetes. The condition used to be called borderline diabetes. So I want to set the stage. This child went to a doctor, they drew blood, and they said, well, his blood sugar is supposed to be 60, it's 68. And so he has a condition. Without regard, I think we need to take 20 of these tests maybe, or realize that it was the Gulpy, the big soda that the child had before he went to the doctor to get the blood. We never consider that.
Yeah, my wife's grandmother went to the hospital at one time, and they gave her a sugar drip the whole time, a sugar IV. And then when they took her blood sugar, it was high, and they diagnosed her as having diabetes. This is the kind of circular reasoning that goes on. So everybody is pre-something, right? Yeah. I'm pre-hypertension, pre-diabetes, pre-everything, because everything beforehand is leading up to something, I guess, in their minds.
Sure, you're right.
I think, though, that many kids are dealing with blood sugar issues because many kids are dealing with diet issues.
Yeah.
I think that the snack cakes and the big gulps and the, all of these juices, and I'm not naming certain brands, I'm not trying to come down on them, I'm just saying that the incredible amount of sugar that kids eat on a normal basis is contributing to the problem.
So, does sugar cause it? Here's what a registered dietitian said.
Oh, great.
The simple answer is no. Although sugar does not cause diabetes, excess calories do cause diabetes. Now that's fascinating. So sugar doesn't play a role. It's almost like the diabetes associations, dietetic associations have a lifeline to the sugar industry. But here's what I did, Kyle. What then might cause diabetes? PubMed has 15,000 research papers that clarify the link between fungus causing diabetes. One of them called streptozotocin. Streptozotocin, sometimes within one injection, causes diabetes in laboratory animals, but get this, what then might cause diabetes? Spices like garlic, turmeric, ginger might inhibit mycotoxin production and cause good health. Fast foods, of course, like the registered dietitian said, are high in calories. Dr. Roby Mitchell had his own thought on what causes prediabetes. Watch this.
So prediabetes would be analogous to pre-hot. So if water boils at 212, at 211 it's still quite hot. diabetes starts as an increase in the amount of sugar that's in the bloodstream. And the higher the sugar gets, then the more critters it attracts, and then the more inflammation that we have. So there's no such thing as prediabetes, really. Once sugar gets to a level where it's attracting critters, then we have a problem. And what we use to diagnose that is a test called hemoglobin A1C in medicine. When that gets above 5.3, then we think there's a problem. If blood sugar starts getting up too high, then we have to do things to bring it down. One of the things to do is not put in so much stuff that turns into sugar. So the white flour, corn, these are the grain products, and then sugar itself.
Kyle, very quickly, we have to get through this. Is there a product a child can take with prediabetes that might help?
If I had to choose one thing for a child that tastes great, it would probably be this one. This is Cinnamol from North American Herb & Spice. It is essential oil of cinnamon with olive oil. Ooh. Cinnamon is incredibly antifungal and incredibly easy to digest and works well with the blood sugar.
As is olive oil. Another question I thought was great. Nystatin and diflucan, I heard they suppress the immune system and can be hard on the liver. Linda, in fact, diflucan and nystatin kill the germs that really suppress the immune system. It isn't these drugs that suppress them. They kill the germs that do. Can they be toxic to the liver? I pulled this out. Systemic antifungal drugs have been shown to cause or contribute to liver toxicity. But remember that some fungal mycotoxins are hepatotoxins themselves. So these drugs are just liberating the fungal poisons out of the liver. Is that really what's happening? Nystatin is classified as a safe drug because it stays mostly in the gut. Symptoms provoked by nystatin may be die-off in nature. Well, you know Jay Mahoney, Dr. Jay Mahoney, who comes on this show. He's probably treated hundreds of patients with these drugs. Here's what he said.
Diflucan, on the other hand, we'll use a daily dose of about 100 milligrams for 30 days, and we'll check their liver function. It's kind of a luxury because I've never seen a problem. I've treated thousands of patients with diflucan.
There's a concern you guys might have. Your doctors might say, look, hepatotoxicity, right? Liver toxic. Diflucan is supposedly hepatotoxic. I never saw it.
Well, I've not seen one case.
So in closing, let me tell you what I think happens. These doctors put the patients on antifungals and it blows out the mycotoxins and the fungi in the liver where it's filtering the blood. And then they draw blood on the patient and see all this poison in the patient's bloodstream, and they say those drugs are toxic, when in fact they may have liberated the toxins. Kyle, good to talk with you.
It's good to talk to you.
More of Know the Cause right around the corner.
I was asked recently to write about how I handle stress. I didn't end up writing what I initially thought I would. I thought I was going to write that we were taught there is no such thing as a stressful situation, that we should do personal development courses that teach us to love ourselves more and to change the meaning of events in our lives. We read books recommending that we unburden ourselves from ever-increasing workloads. We take wonderful herbs and repair our adrenal glands with rest and relaxation. I have done them all, and they've all helped. Yet over the years, I've come to realize that I was missing something that was lurking in the shadows like a wolf in the wild. I realized my stress was there because I had been removed from nature. We are a wild animal now living in a zoo. Separate any organism from its natural environment and it will become stressed. We are separated from the air, the food, the water, and the movement that is designed for us. So the greatest tool I have discovered for my stress is to move back to a life I was designed for. I have returned to the earth, where I live, how I eat, what I drink, and how I move. My purpose in life has changed, and so too my ability to handle stress. I'm Dr. Greg Emerson for Know the Cause.
Well, we talked about pre-diabetes and pre-cancer today. Why not preventive medicine, right? How do we see to a doctor prevention is a flu shot? To me, it's beta-glucan and exercising and eating right during flu season. So we're almost diametric on that scale. This has recently come to my attention, a brand new, this was in the British Medical Journal, a very prestigious medical journal. They looked at the rationale for continuing mammography, right? And they said it's really not reducing death. Look, ladies, I know some of you have taken a mammography, an early mammography, and it caught a lump and it saved your life, and I'm thrilled. But there's a group here that I wrote about in my blog that are voiceless, that had a false positive. And boy, the x-rays and the chemotherapy and the breast surgery began, and now they don't have a voice, folks. They were falsely told they have breast cancer, okay? And it's that group I want to think about. And I also want to praise the women who have gotten mammography early, and it did detect a lump, and you're alive today because of it. So they're questioning in this prestigious journal the value of doing screening mammography. And they're saying up until a woman's 60, is it really beneficial? That's where it went. You got to read this. It's on my, it's in my blogs. Then this, a couple of years ago, PSA screening benefits fall short of their predictions. And listen what this doctor said. The potential benefits of PSA-based screening must be more clearly defined before universal recommendations can be made. Wait a minute. It's been universally done by millions of men for what, 40 years? There's a good book coming out here very soon. The Great PSA Hoax. Men, you really have to read this. More importantly, if you're a doctor watching this, please read this book. Sometimes all of these tests aren't all that they're carved out to be. Doug Kaufman, just my take.
Hi, my name is Brittany, and today we're going to be talking about mold, yeast, and fungus that's commonly found in our foods. Come on, let's go. So when I say the word fungus, what do you think of?
Small, black, fuzzy stuff that grows on the wall near water sometimes.
What about mold?
The same stuff.
Spores, things that are not very healthy that you want in your home.
Mold, like
clay molding?
highly toxic environment. It's not good for you.
I think of mushrooms. I think of the stuff that grows in your bathroom, you know, around like the faucets and everything in the sink.
Have you ever lived in a moldy home?
No, I have not lived in a moldy home, but I have lived in an apartment where we did have a little bit of mold going.
Like this and stuff. Like I used to live in these old apartments and they had it in the vents and it ended up being black mold. They had to like take us out of the apartment and move us, so that was pretty disgusting.
Not in my home, but when I was younger, visiting at grandparents, the home was very old. It was built in the 1800s originally, and so from time to time, you know, they'd have to do some cleanup and get some of that out of there.
Probably I have, and I think if you live in this part of the country, you do experience some mold wherever you are. It's just too humid here.
Would you link illnesses to mold?
I would. Yes, respiratory especially.
I believe it can. The first thing that comes to my mind would be some sort of generic allergy. I'm sure there's probably something more specific and serious it can be linked to, but I'm not certain what that is.
Definitely, especially here in Texas. I mean, people many times, mold can be a really big problem here, especially with the heat and the humidity. So I think that that can be a major problem. I know places, people have had to shut down homes and apartments because of mold.
That was great.
Depression is a serious condition in children and adults, and it can leave a person feeling helpless, lonely, and very disconnected from their life. The Center for Disease Control estimates that depression affects 1 out of every 10 people in the United States. As a pharmacist, I know we use strong pills for depression, and some of these are mind-numbing. It's interesting to me that researchers conducted a study and they decided that fish oils work just as well as a popular drug called Prozac in many people.
When a person has too many symptoms, we call it a disease. When a person has too many diseases, we call it a syndrome. When a person knows the cause of a syndrome, we call him John Trowbridge. Syndrome X. You know, it's like X-rated movie. Syndrome R. Is there a Syndrome G? You know, Dr.
Actually,
John Trowbridge joins me
Not
right
yet.
There is
But that's a good idea.
But Syndrome X, isn't that just dark?
Syndrome X sounds dark, and what it was is I don't understand how to express this. And Jerry Reven was the bright guy, Stanford professor, who declared this basically in 1988.
You did undergraduate work at Stanford?
I did undergraduate there. I met him. He was taking care of a friend of mine in 1968 for hypoglycemia. Now, that was the buzzword back then, okay? And I met him, as he was a young professor there, and he was curious because he couldn't find normal insulin levels. What they did was they found normal sugar levels, but the insulin levels were all over the map. It didn't make sense to him. And that's what started his inquiry. And what he finally concluded is that people have good insulin levels and good sugar levels, and in order to maintain a good sugar level, they'll move their insulin as high as they need to. And that's the genesis of Syndrome X. It's now called metabolic syndrome or cardiometabolic syndrome. I think it should be called fungal metabolic syndrome, because what we're going to finally find is that the reason you've been interrupted is largely based on a fungus problem. If you know the cause, you can probably fix it.
Boy, that's got a ring.
It's got a ring to it. I would use that for a TV show.
Great TV show. You reviewed my cancer hypotheses.
Yes.
In all honesty, as the guy that mentored me and wrote the book on
Yes.
this, your thoughts?
Yes, my thought is that we've missed cancer for eons and generations, and we're going to continue to miss it because it's still very profitable to treat. Maureen Salomon was president of the National Health Federation when I was chairman of the board. And Maureen used to say more people are making a living off of cancer than dying from it. And that's still very true. If you don't treat what caused the cancer, why wouldn't you get another? Oh, actually, people who get cancer have a 10% greater risk of a second independent primary.
Yep.
In other words, another cancer developing in them that other people don't get as much. So I think that we're going to find fungus is related to so many of the inflammatory and immune and infectious diseases. We're going to be blown away.
And you know what I love, Dr. Trowbridge, is all the reports coming out that children with autism go on to get arthritis. If you don't dam up the water upstream, it's going to flood everything downstream. If you don't find the cause of the autism, it's going to cause arthritis.
Exactly.
And then once they put you on pills for that, you'll have gout. Once that's fixed, you'll get ringing in your ears. If not from the medicines, from the fungus itself.
Oh, you're off on that polypharmacy line again. But you have to understand that the specialist over there said we needed to take this. And this specialist over here said this, and pretty soon you are an experiment in pharmacology, and nobody knows what the side effects are.
Okay, take me into that all-important first visit with Dr. Trowbridge, who's been around the block a lot. Here comes, take me, 64-year-old male, prostate problems, but I'm on several meds for that.
Right.
Hypertension, but it's only 160, so I'm only on 2 meds for that.
Right.
My cholesterol, I've been on statin drugs for as long as they've been out, but the doctors tell me that's going to help prevent heart disease. And it's quite safe.
Yes.
And I'm on allopurinol because I do have some gout. You sit down with me. How in the world, knowing what you know, how in the world do you start with somebody like Doug Kaufman?
It's very simple. First of all, you can't get in because you have to fill out 6 hours worth of forms. Questionnaires every which way but loose, including Billy Crook's yeast questionnaire. I got his permission to use that a long time ago.
I like that.
And I sit down with you with a CD recording so that we're going
You're
through...
recording it?
Recording.
Okay.
So that we're going through all the information. I tell people, your job now is to ask questions because I want the answers in plain English for you so that you can take this CD home, throw it in your medical folder, and you have a new listening anytime you want, a refresher course, if you will. And I go through everything, and then after I've asked all the questions I want about funny stuff, the odd stuff with them, I say, okay, now let me explain how all this likely came to be. And I start putting it together, and I go, so this is where your treatment comes from. We're going to go after where it started, not where it is.
Wow.
And that's how we get rid of it.
Do you find that people who moved into an old home, who bought 20 antique books and they've been reading them, to people who have been on lots of antibiotics, but theirs were important because
they had to. They were infected.
Exactly. They had chronic infections.
Don't forget the cortisone for their little asthma every now.
Thank you.
Yes.
And the gout, and now that darn same toe has bothered me because look at this, the toenail is eaten off. Is this kind of the stereotypical, when you begin explaining this to the patients, how many of them get it?
Most of them, because we kind of require them to get a little bit smarter when they come in, most of them kind of get it, and they don't really want to do the treatment because the treatment starts with the diet. And if you don't do the diet, I will not treat you. It's very simple because I want to fix you. not just put more patches on.
I love that. Unique thinker, out of the box, Dr. John Trowbridge. He wrote the book called The Yeast Syndrome many years ago, still true today. Dr. Trowbridge, you're one of my heroes. Thank you so much for enlightening my audience. Don't go away, friends. More of Know the Cause right around the corner.
I have had challenges with fungus and yeast all of my life. Back in 2000, 2001, I had so many challenges with diverticulitis that the gastroenterologist suggested I have surgery. They wanted to take out a section of my intestines. I didn't really know what the problem was until I started listening to Doug Kaufman. I went to see the surgeon, but I had been listening to Doug Kaufman, and I prayed about it, and I prayed, and I prayed. And I just decided that I was going to follow Doug's diet and see if I could avoid the surgery. And I did. It was successful. I had a lot of stress in my life, and I was eating all the wrong foods, but I just really didn't associate it with fungus for a period of time. And then all of a sudden I thought, oh wait, I know what this is. So I got on diflucan and nystatin to supercharge it, get it started, and of course it's the diet that really makes the difference and keeps it from coming back. It's not easy, but it works, and you won't believe the vitality and energy that you do have when you're on Doug's diet. If you really and truly are tired of looking that way and feeling that way, make a decision. Make yourself a promise and keep it.
So one of the problems with anyone following a phase 1 diet is you hit the wall, right? Many people at 3 and 4 days say, I need something sweet. Okay, not all the time, but here's a little goodie, a little information that Denny put together to help you out when you hit that wall. We don't want you doing this every day because there's a lot of sugar, fructose in this case, good, God sugar in this, but man, this is good. I've made this before. It is delicious.
And of course, berries don't have as much sugar as other fruits, which is why they're a phase 1 fruit. So, but what we're going to do is we're going to dress it up a little bit, because berries on their own are just great, but when you really want to feel like you're going to indulge just a little bit,
reward yourself.
Yeah, so we're going to make some coconut whipped cream.
Okay.
If you buy coconut in a can, it's helpful to chill it overnight first, open it from the bottom, and usually, not always, but usually, most of the heavy solids, the actual that part of the coconut will float to the top, so if you open it upside down, the more liquid is on the bottom, and you can kind of pour that off, save it, use it in smoothies or something else. So it kind
upside down, yeah,
sticks to the bottom, the heavy stuff. So when
it sure does, yeah.
You can add, if you like your whipped cream, normally if you like it real light, you could just add more of that back in. This will make a pretty thick whipping cream. And we're just going to sweeten it with a little bit of vanilla stevia, and then we're going to whip it up.
Now that's an option. So many of you say, gosh, berries are so sweet anyway, I don't want to add the stevia. If you do,
wouldn't have to at all.
Right. Or if this for your kids, you know, goodie for the kids, they might like it a little sweeter.
Okay, I'm going to make some noise here.
Okay.
And just like with regular cream, if you whip it longer,
you get a different consistency.
It'll
become,
stiffer. Right.
Okay.
My little scraper. So this is pretty soft whipped cream, but it's okay. It'll spread more easily that way. We're going to take those berries, and we're going to start with the strawberries and just put a few on the bottom. And then we're going to layer on a little bit of this yumminess.
Coconut milk. You know, you talk about antifungal, lauric acid, caprylic acid, all in this coconut. So good for you.
The berries. Lots of antioxidants, right?
And the colors of these, too, tell you what good fruits they are. Raspberries.
Raspberries, which I love. Put a little more. and some blackberries. Oh my goodness, we're going to be so full here.
Good. I'll eat that. What you guys don't know is after we're done filming these segments, who eats all of this stuff? Yeah, there's a bunch of camera guys, a bunch of sound guys around here. I do. Denny, thank you for lending your knowledge in your kitchen.
Oh, happy to
out
do
in LA
it.
today filming these at Denny's house.
Putting a little bit of toasted, dehydrated, unsweetened coconut on top just for fun. If you don't like the texture of coconut, don't do it.
For you taste
There you
it.
go. No, it's all yours. You go ahead.
It's all mine? Thank you. Know the cause. Look at this. Oh, come on. Come on. Very sweet. Very good. And the coconut kind of offsets the sweetness of it. You know, really adds flavor and
Right, and you can make it, by adding vanilla stevia or even plain stevia. You can make it a little more sweet if if your kids are really picky and they say, "Oh, I miss my whipped cream."
Yeah.
You can make it more sweet or less.
delicious and beautiful. It's phase one, dining with Denny.
I'm Dan Soloway. I'm the host of the Health and Fitness Radio Show. All my life, I had suffered with allergies. When I was a little boy, I used to run off the roof and I would climb fences and I'd get stitches about every 2 weeks. To the doctor nicknamed me Band-Aid Dan. And of course, back in the early 50s, they'd give you penicillin shots every time you went in. And by the time I got into first grade, I would sneeze after breakfast. I'd sneeze so much. I suffered nearly all my life from allergies. And then it got really bad about 2 years ago. My garage flooded about 6 times in a heavy rain over about a month period. And I'd gotten a mold infection to a point that I could only sleep about an hour. And I remembered my friend Doug Kaufman said that when he was at USC, they used to powder up nystatin tablets. So I got a diflucan prescription and nystatin tablets, powdered up, put in a saline solution, and for the first time in my life, I know what it feels like not to have allergies. And I used every nutritional thing under the sun, but when I put those two combinations together, it cured my toenail fungus and cured my allergies. So I'm really impressed, and I'm really glad I know Doug, because without that, I'd still be sniffling.
We do believe in eating well. We do believe that fungus causes health problems, maybe even Syndrome X. We are puny ants, but converged, we have a voice. And I think that's kind of neat. Thank you, Kyle Drew, for coming in today. It's
good to
really
see
good
you.
to see you again.
Thank
you
you
so much for your participation.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you also, Dr. Roby Mitchell and Dr. Mahoney.
Yeah.
I mean, good input from both of them. Thank you so much, Susie, for your tips. And finally today, folks, Dr. Elizabeth Moore Landecker said Candida albicans growth is inhibited when it is exposed to salt, heat, cold, or light. Okay, this was a tough one for me, Kyle, and I have her books. But the answer is, and it makes sense, when
Light.
exposed to light. Sunlight, Candida hates. Isn't that fascinating?
Psoriasis, sunlight.
When you got out in the sunlight
You betcha.
and you ate well, your psoriasis
Changed
responded
everything.
favorably. I hope this has been a great show for you folks. Tell a friend. You can watch it again tomorrow right here on the internet, knowthecause.com. Thank you for being here.